Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. In today's episode, it's going to be something a little bit different. I was sent 4 replays that apparently all featured some very interesting strategies, and so although each one of them wasn't individually long enough for a video, I felt I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to show you. So what I'm going to do today is break them down into 2 parts, one video today and one video tomorrow, and both of those are of course going to feature all 4, well, each one is going to feature 2 of the 4 games, and it should be a lot of fun. Anyways, all that logistics aside, welcome, and I hope you're ready to watch some interesting games. Today we've got Pawn Retreat up on the ladder first. We've got Rebel Node spawning in the back and going to be representing the blue team here as the blue team leader. Interesting strategy here. We're going for a bot lab off of 3 metal extractors and 2 solar panels. It's basically all standard, but playing from the very back here, I am expecting a little bit of cheese. Although that being said, I guess this position isn't really in the back line. Yeah, actually, now the more that I look at it, the blue player here, Rebel Node, is actually more of a frontline position because he has to push down this hill and secure these mexes up here, which is quite nice, but it does mean that he's going to be up against quite a lot of units coming out of the red team here. 3 players at the very least are going to be pumping units out over there, although maybe one of these players in the back is going to be going for air. Anyways, all the way on the other side of the map here, representing the red team, it's going to be Nert C. Nert C is a Cortex commander and going to be going into a Resbot here to prospectively eat up all of these trees. That's what I would do anyways. Sounds like a good enough plan to me. And I don't think I mind it one bit. So a little bit of a misalignment as far as player starts go. You can see that 2 players started in the back position here for the red team versus 1 player starting in the back position there for the blue team. Where is the extra player? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess the extra player, there's just 2 back here. There's 1 here. 1 here. That's all lines up. Huh. Where am I missing the player? I guess it's just right over here, right? Kind of. You have these 3 up against these 4 versus these 3 up against these 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess it's just that you only have these 2 in the middle versus these 3 in the middle. Interesting. I guess it's not so much a mix-up. It's just a mismatch of where these players are going, but rather, I mean, technically they all could be colliding with each other. I'm trying to figure out what the mirroring on this map is. I think it's something like this, more or less. Kind of how it's designed. Anyways, how about I talk about the game, huh? Grunts here getting a little bit aggressive over on the right-hand side. That's Magic sending those grunts across, trying to get a little bit of a scout done. Does spot the commander here for Kyrdian, and that is going to reveal where that hot pink player is. And of course, they also encountered the red forces, so they know where that red player is. Another scout over on this left-hand side, and you can see the Commander Zod as well as, who was that over there? Rebel Node. Both sent some scouts across here, and they are going to find out where the enemy is. Bobo has been scouted, and as well, the orange player has been scouted back here. So the blue team is aware now of the fact that they're going up against 2 players in the back here, while they only have 1. Wow, that's a lot of solar panels. Not sure how I feel about that many solar panels. Well, actually, you guys know exactly how I feel about that many solar panels. Interesting. Wondering what the shenanigan is going to be for this match. There was a little synopsis when I received all of these matches, but it's been a while since I downloaded them. So I don't know. I'm going into these blind, trying to figure out what the shenanigan is going to be here. I am really curious to figure out what it is. So far, everything looks fairly standard. I mean, there's aggression across the map, which is really nice to see. Dog 1 is open, is moving to a forward vehicle bay, but gets caught sort of in that transitionary period between when you're putting up the vehicle bay and when you're not producing very many units here. So a bunch of pawns do manage to run by. Now, there are enough pawns of his own to deal with all this, but they have to take a decent engagement here. No, that engagement definitely went in favor of the blue. Yep. Concave was better for the blue player, and you can see just how tremendously that impacted how that fight went. Although the blue pawns are a little bit distracted by the eco. Can't get their fingers out of the cookie jar, and it is going to cost them quite dearly. Bunch of aggression over on this side as well. Dealing with grunts using pawns is so difficult. You have to constantly be microing. You never want to let your pawns be sitting still because it's so easy for a Cortex commander to just, yep, fight command on top of them, and it takes basically nothing at all for your pawns to just disintegrate into light laser fire air, and there's not a whole lot left standing after that. Yeah, very, very tricky. It's why we see Armada commanders so tempted by that vehicle transition, because eventually the vehicles are going to be able to outrange the pawns, or the grunts rather, and you're going to be in a decent little spot here. Oh, pawns get on the high ground here. Yeah, this is a bummer. Dog 1 is open, move the commander to go claim the metal extractors, which I don't think was necessarily the wrong decision here, but it did leave a gap in the armor, and now a bunch of pawns are going to kill the vehicle bay. That is a bummer. That was a lot of metal put down, especially for the early game like this, and now losing all of that to the pawns being aggressive on the other side of the map. It's why the vehicle start is tricky to pull off against a really competent bot player. It's one of the things that a really good bot player will always be able to do is harass on the angles that you're leaving exposed, because of course your commander has to move out of the way. In early game, your commander is one of the best ways to deal with those units. Excellent aggression over here. Going to snipe not one but two vehicle labs, shutting down a lot of the unit production here for the red team. Yeah, this is securing Rebel Node's front quite nicely here. These pawns are absolute heroes. Yep, over on this side, the pawns are having a much rougher time trying to deal with these grunts in mass numbers. But yeah, I mean, once those grunts get up to high enough numbers where they can start snowballing, there's really not a whole lot you can do. Magic is pushed a little far forward here. He does have the aggravators to try and fire back at his enemy here, but one thing after another, and I think those grunts are going to fall, as well as those aggravators. There's just too much for the red on the right-hand side. Just finished up the Tuesday stream and decided to hit the record button. Figured I'd take a look at these because I was so excited to see whatever was going down here. I love the games. Don't get me wrong. I love a good high-level game where it's just as high level and as competent a player as possible going up against another, or 8 of those going up against 8 more. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm always a fan of some shenanigans as well. Okay, so commander kill right here on 1 APM Grandpa. Does go down here to the forces of Commander Zod that we're moving forward. Now, don't get me wrong, though, that Janus is definitely out and available, and it can contribute significant firepower, but the Beamer turret going to be able to blast down that Janus, and it will fall. Not after firing, or not before firing at least 2 volleys, though, and shutting down some of the other aggression here. Whoa, another commander death over here. Looks like a double commander death. Slightly larger explosion always indicates 2 commanders hugging it out. Indeed, that is going to be Nerdsea's commander going down right next to Bruv's commander. I think this favors the blue team here. Grandor CZ definitely could move in there and reclaim a whole lot of the metal out of those corpses, and indeed, I think that's the move that I think I would like to see. We have a lot of units all over the place for the blue team. The red team is definitely on the defensive foot here. Yep, trying to get Crandor's attention here. Crandor says he will res. Interesting. Yeah, he has resbots working on this corpse as well. I don't think we want to res it. That's going to take way too long. Having another commander isn't really that powerful. Crandor definitely seems to disagree, though. And to be fair, I mean, if you have this many resbots, 45% so far. And yeah, I mean, it's coming up relatively quickly here. 10 resbots. Going to pick this commander up pretty quick. There's an obvious problem with resurrecting commanders, and it's who do you give it to, right? The person who resurrects the thing gets the commander, but the question is that the most effective? Alright, Crandor is now up and running. This commander is going to fall off the back line. It's going to go rebuild itself, I guess. It is an interesting decision to rebuild all those. I wonder if that's the cheesy play we're going for here or something. Dog 1 is open, still suffering from attacks, brutal attacks all over the place. You can see tanks lying in ruin over here. Eventually this bot, or this vehicle lab, did come back up. Not sure if that was resurrected or just rebuilt, but either way, going to continue to try and build on the high ground here. Does wall off the little ramp here, or orange player does anyways, and that's quite nice. Going to at the very least prevent any of those lighter units from running on in. Yeah, I mean, 16 red spots, and I guess you're going to pick up a commander relatively quick here. At this point, it's actually just an energy problem. You have to put in energy in order to resurrect a unit. It's I believe it's 50% of the energy that it takes to make the unit. For a commander, it's 26,000, so 13,000 energy you have to put into a commander in order to resurrect it. But I mean, over time, why not? Commander number 2 is on the line. Now, repair does not take anything at all, so repair is completely free here. And now Crandor has 3 commanders. Okay. Oh. This one was partially eaten, and so it will be, it's going to be difficult to resurrect that one. It's going to take a second. You have to put all the metal back before you can start resurrecting here, but eventually that will be the case. So this is interesting because I guess it does allow you to move these commanders in willy-nilly, and you can just throw them in, and you know, you explode one of your commanders, the next one just pushes forward, and the explosion kills half of the enemy's units. Like, these are essentially just walking thermonuclear warheads. It's pretty powerful, I suppose, but I haven't seen anybody use them this way, and I'm gonna need to see it before I can believe it. So I do wonder if that's the play of the game that we're going for here. Commander death over here as Rebel Node's commander does get sniped down. I believe those Janices did connect, and that is going to be the blue commander without a, well, commander. All right. Purple player with now 4 commanders under his belt. What are we going to do with all of them is the question. Another thing that I guess you could go for is you could tech transition, right? So you resurrect a commander, and then now he has Cortex under his belt as well as Armada. So that's something to remain aware of. Not necessarily the end of the world, but it is something to consider. This I like a whole lot better though. Resurrecting on the front lines here to try and patch up as many of these bots as possible. Resbots have that superpower of reinforcing from the front lines, and it just makes them extremely necessary on extended, drawn-out front lines. You really have to make sure you include them, otherwise you're just going to be hemorrhaging metal, eventually falling behind. But to be so greedy, fighting over corpses. Commander's being used as glorified build power here, I guess. Dragon's Maw Wreckage, that's going to be nice to have resurrected here. In fact, all of this static defense is going to be nice to have resurrected. Purple player with now a daunting army. Whether or not they came from the commanders, I'm not sure, but it certainly is in large part due to these red spots that are doing a great job of holding on to this front line. Commander goes down right there. But yeah, I guess it's not a problem. You just resurrect it, get it back in the fight. You have 3 more commanders to hold your line, so it doesn't even really matter. Army of commanders. Who knew? Huh. The commander's a pretty powerful unit, but I definitely underestimated it in this game. Grandor CZ showing us that there is indeed a variable way to play. Even I didn't believe it could be done, but yeah, the commander resurrection right now. Pretty powerful stuff. Not to mention, of course, how many D-guns you have available with 3 commanders. Wipe away armies like it's nothing. Resbots in total, 18. And I think that's probably a good number. Seems to get commanders up pretty quickly here. The units pushing in, trying their best. There are fiends coming out here. If there's one unit that kills commanders pretty good, it's fiends. Does it kill 3 commanders pretty good? That's an interaction I just haven't seen before, so I do not know. It's so odd to see 3 commanders pushing with each other, but I guess it works. What an interesting playstyle. Yeah, I guess the purple player managing to push far enough and threatening with 4 commanders is just going to be too much for the red team to bear. What a bizarre playstyle, but you know what? I'm all here for it. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to the commander's playstyle. I don't know. Let me know, and let me know what you think down below, and we'll hop on in to game number 2. Folsom Dam, going to be game number 2. So I think, if I do remember correctly, I did read the spoilers, and the one that I remember is called Feed the Middle, and I wonder if that's this replay here. It makes a lot of sense. Folsom Dam, for anybody who's not aware, is a very interesting map. It's got a wonderful little dynamic playground to enjoy. It's got this big pond up in the northern side where naval play is much encouraged. Hovercraft also very potent over here as well, though, so that's something to keep in mind. Southern side has these two rivers that make tick spam basically impossible, but it does encourage definitely those players to go for a whole lot of infantry armies and vehicle armies, right? They can push through this flat open land and try to secure it as best as they can. And then, of course, there's the middle. 3.1 metal extractors all down the middle of Folsom Dam. And then, of course, there's these weird-looking things. What do they call it? Powerhouses. Interesting. There's powerhouses and pipelines, both of which contain a substantial amount of metal and energy, which is why it's so important to have a resbot going out and reclaiming as much of this as possible. Rover has been scouted and will indeed be blasted apart here by the ticks coming out of Nert C. Again, our blue team leader going up once more against Rebel Node. The colors have switched, but the team leaders have remained the same, and now you can see so much of that resource is all going back to Nert C because of this resbot pulling away at it on the front lines. Into our metal cam here. 350 per means that it's 600. Let's see, 700 per group, which means 1,400 total. If my quick maths do add up appropriately, that's definitely an advantage and a half to feed back to your team. Almost a commander's worth of metal. When this map was originally introduced, that was way less than a commander's worth of metal, but by now, after a couple of nerfs to the commander's metal value, certainly a significant advantage, to say the very least, and it's all going back to the blue team right now, so for the time being, maybe the red team's going to have to be on the back foot here. Wind turbines being handed over to Nerd C to make sure that there's constantly enough energy to fund all of this, but that being said, all the wind turbines in the world aren't going to help you when the wind speed is an abysmal 2 per second. That is just terrible. Yeah, these commanders have been bitten by the wind bug, and there's not really anything you can do to fix it. Solar panels, I mean, it's a good temporary solution, but then you're down so much metal, and it's really, really hard to come back after that. That being said, Nerd C does have some Rocketeers on the front line, accompanied by some Pawns and some Ticks and all sorts of other stuff. Going to be firing away at Magic's commander here, who is trying to throw up a light laser defense. Try and keep some of these units out. Blitzes are coming up here, but Magic is running off of just 3.1 metal per second off of that metal extractor. It's decent, but it's definitely nowhere near what you need in order to make a vehicle lab viable. Vehicle lab viable. There's a sentence for you. Blitz going to try and get a little bit of a connection, and it does manage to do a decent job connecting here. Being repaired by Magic, that's very nice to see. I do like the repair micro. Finally, wind production will spike as the wind speed does increase here, and it's going to mean that the middle of the map is going to become hotly contested once more. Only Ticks can't. Yep, indeed. Kislik 540, going to be marching down here, trying to lock down this area with some light laser turrets. Don't mind it. Definitely going to shut down any rovers that might get pesky and try and run on by. Definitely going to shut down some grunts or some pawns, anything like that that gets just a little bit too comfortable hanging out in the middle of the map here. I can calm bomb if we don't get through otherwise. That's probably a wise decision, and especially since you know that you already have a resbot out here. No point in not calm bombing, since you know you're gonna most likely get all that metal back anyways. Gotta be very careful. Looks like pawns will be more than enough though, as Magic's commander will go down. Thought I had the wrong commander there. No, it is the hot pink Magic. And that commander will go down. Nerd C jumps on top of that metal immediately, and I think that's absolutely the right idea. Commander Zod gonna march forward. At this point, Rebel Node's commander is here, but yeah, I mean, 2 versus 1, definitely not the engagement that you're hoping for. There's also just too many Rocketeers here for the blue player, and I think at this point, there's not a lot that the red team can do. Not about the middle of the map anyway. They're going to have to dedicate a massive amount of resource in order to clear this. So that was nice. Rebel Node did move forward, at the very least wiping away the wreckage here, but that is going to mean 2 more corpses here for Nerd C to eat up. And those rocket bots, well, they're looking awfully hungry. I guess the commander is looking more hungry than the rocket bots. The rocket bots are just happy to be here, happy to fire away with their rockets at long range, and the Whistler here is actually a really nice inclusion because it does give you the vision that those Rocketeers need in order to fire at their absolute maximum range. Oftentimes their problem is that they are within range of a target, but they just don't have the vision, or they don't have the radar signature. They don't have any way of targeting anything out in the distance, and so they remain idle. So much metal going back here, and you can see tons and tons of metal coming here. All of it went into a T2 lab for Nerd C, a very, very quick T2 lab, and a lot of build power as well. Capturing these metal extractors is very nice as well. 3.1 metal per second, and that is a tremendous advantage for the blue team. And I think that just too much damage has been done. Already the blue economy is spiraling. You can see these pawns now jumping on top of the vehicle lab, looking to kill the hot pink player, and that is going to be all she wrote for Magic's base here. He has one lone vehicle constructor, but basically no energy production at the moment. No metal production at the moment. Hardly any energy production. A couple of wind turbines are all that he has to his name. And that is going to be a dominating lead for the middle of the map here for the blue team. Grandor getting jumped on top of by some pawns, but is going to manage to hold on. Not all too bad. Kislik, the only bastion in the dark against the southern side of the blue forces here. Big ol' man is trying to hold on as well, but those missile trucks can only fire so fast and so far. And eventually they will be overrun by T1 forces. Frigate battle out here in the oceans, as we can see some of those Cortex frigates. The Cortex frigates are a little bit better than the Elsa, but that being said, that wasn't really the biggest advantage here. Of course, it was the amount of frigates here, the overwhelming numbers, which are eventually going to win the naval battle here for Bobo. And Dog 1 is open, will be forced out of the sea. Violently, it would appear. Reclaiming off the front's very nicely done. I'm sure that lab got eaten up as well. Eating up all the vehicles, and now suddenly Nerd C is in a weird situation where he's facing several different players all at once. What was at one point a 1v1 or a 1v2 has now turned into essentially a 1v6. So it's a really good thing that that T2 is out, because otherwise this could be a huge problem. And missile trucks have kind of hit their stride here. Now built in enough numbers that I do believe they're going to be able to burst down most of these T1 units. But you have to keep them constantly firing. You need to make sure that no matter what, you're always trading your missile truck's time for some damage. And indeed, that's what we're doing. Yeah, missile truck's pretty good against units. Not so good against commanders, not so good against structures. They're good over time. But against units, they certainly can do a decent amount of damage. And you can see that these Rocketeers falling relatively quickly here to the missile truck spam. Yeah, not bad. Not bad whatsoever. This is still a huge problem, though. Hounds are now out, and we all know just how efficient those hounds are at shutting down T1. Shuriken also going to be included here. They get blasted away by some missile trucks, but I like the idea. Not a bad idea. Once the hounds start building up in enough numbers, though, I have a feeling this is going to be a really difficult hold here for the red forces. Rebel Node trying to found a whole bunch of Rocketeers, force them out into the middle of the map, using the commander as a bit of a buffer. Yeah, these hounds, I mean, they can fire away from so far. You look at the attack range here. You can see just how far those hounds can reach out with those Gauss cannons. And, well, the Lashers just can't really hope to compete with that. Not to mention how much more mobile they are as well. Everything is just stacked in the hound's favors. And Bobo has absolutely captured the high seas here, which is quite nice. Would love to see him eat up this lab here. No reason to keep the naval lab up and running if you're transitioning to hovercraft. Hovercraft are so expensive, you really can't afford anything else, not until you're properly into a well mid-game economy. We're talking definitely about 50 or so metal per second. Missile trucks now helping clean up the southern side as well. This is quite nice. Memory corruption is going to be forced to reclaim this lab that was 92% of the way completed. That is painful, but at the very least going to manage to hold on to the metal, which is a silver lining, if you will. Yeah. Manages to pull the metal out of the lab, but is going to resign the position because there's not really anything to do to hold on here. Southern side of the blue team is losing, but the middle of the blue team is doing a great job. And with these T2 metal extractors coming up with 12 metal per second, that is really high. And you can see it reflected in the economy here of Nerd C, who actually does not have a way to spend the metal right now. Completely out of energy with no way to spend it. And I think a fusion reactor would probably be a good idea. A little bombing run over here. Going to take out some wind turbines. That's also very nice, especially wind turbines that might be grouped up in big areas like this. The 2x row is my favorite way because it's very bomber resistant, but that being said, there's not really any formation that, as long as it's not chain reactable, there's not really any one formation that's more or less bomber resistant, other than maybe random patterns. Just random smatterings of wind turbines everywhere. Now, as long as these E2 metal extractors are churning away, the blue team can afford to lose this southern side. And lose is even too strong of a word here because they haven't really lost it. They're just contesting it, right? I mean, this is a split map right here, and so the red team is just holding where a even game would be. But realistically, with how much metal is coming in from the blue player holding this center area, they need to be a whole lot further here. Missile trucks doing a great job though, and I think a lot of these have tons of kills. 52 kills between all these missile trucks. That's really, really impressive. Very, very nice. And I think eventually all these Rocketeers are going to fall as well. Not a whole lot left here for the blue team on the southern side. Going into vehicles, I think that's probably a good idea. I wouldn't mind Janices. I feel like Janices could connect with this missile truck ball and do a great amount of work. Nerd Siege is making sure to constantly trade out units as effectively as possible here. Not getting too aggressive, and that's really important. It's very easy to overstep your boundaries, right? Get a little too overconfident with the hounds, and then suddenly you've lost all of them. Being careful not to overstep there is very, very powerful. Using the commander to repair as well, also very nice. Medium tanks being sacrificed instead of hounds in order to do a little bit of damage and kind of push the enemy back here. Nicely done. And at this point, Nerdsea is basically just waiting for the golden opportunity when the armies are depleted enough, there's no more metal, all hope is lost, and the soul has been purged from the body. And that is when the hounds will strike their truest. Oh, nice little run by over here. Waddle by, maybe. Couple of maces are going to walk on by here and try and do a little bit of counterattack damage. And you know what? There's actually not a lot of units here for the maroon player back at home. Yeah, okay. The maces get into the back line and they can start firing away. They do tons of damage. Okay. Shut off unit production, and there's not going to be reinforcements to clean up either. And that will be the bot lab going down. Very, very nice little run by there. Finding an opening and managing to sneak a couple of units through. I don't even really know where these came from. They must have just pushed right through the middle or something, or maybe they just were lingering around on the top side. But either way, striking the maroon player right when reinforcements were most needed. And that is going to be a crippling blow to the red player because he's going to have to rebuild on the front line. I think that's the only option here. Rebuilding a vehicle bay on the front line to start reinforcing his army from the front. I mean, not the end of the world, but certainly hurts. T2 Lab comes under fire from behind now, as Big Ol' Man is now left with maces in his back line, and they're going to start eating things apart. Speaking of eating things apart, yep, these guys are having a field day. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, Constructor's OP, I suppose. Going to be able to dismantle a whole lot of these units, but it really won't matter because at the end of the day, that push through the middle was just too powerful. The blue team will claim victory over the red and conclude our little look into these shenanigans playstyles. As far as shenanigans go, I don't really think this is a shenanigan. I think this is just the proper way to play this map. Just put your strongest player in the middle and make sure to feed him as much as absolutely humanly possible. And I think you're going to end up in a pretty good state. Anyways, thanks a ton for watching. Wow, you can see the graph for blue just from all that teamwork really, really rocketing away. Thanks a ton for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed. This is a bit of an interesting format, so let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the very next videos. Peace out, folks.